mistake, I went to look for my check.
We're good to go.
Yeah.
Good to go.
I'd like to call this Law Enforcement, Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee meeting to order. Today is July the 18th, 2023. The time is 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. I'd like to have a moment of silence. Mr. Root,
Yes, sir.
would you like to do our invocation?
Absolutely. Pray with me if you'd like to. Well, Father, it's wonderful that we have this time to convene and for the committee to deliberate and make plans and do good work for the county, for very important, crucial areas in law enforcement, public safety, health, welfare, and all of the folks who support those enterprises. They're direly important, and the citizens rely on them, so I just pray that you give this committee your divine insight and wisdom to plan the course that's going to support those services that the county provides as best we can. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Durham, would you lead us in our allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of May the 16th, 2023?
Make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Vote is 3-0.
Okay, we'll move into discussion items. First up, Mr. Scott Crine, Director of Oconee County Emergency Services, and it'll be for an emergency services update.
Good evening, sir. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come up forward, and just want to give you an update on some of the openings and some of the things that are kind of out there for us. As always, we're still struggling to hire, but I want to just kind of put it in perspective for you. We're specifically talking about the firefighter positions that are out there. Number one, they're supporting the citizens every day. Our volunteer firefighters, they're out there trying to support them and make sure their equipment's ready for them to do a great job that they do. But presently, out of the 18 24-hour firefighter positions, we have 3 openings. Out of the 8 40-hour positions, we have 6 openings. Out of the 11 part-time positions that we have to backfill and to make sure we can keep trucks open, we have 7 positions open. When we're talking directly about the firefighter positions, that's a 43.2% opening for the firefighter position within our county. And when you look at that, we are now working firefighters 48 hours with 24 hours off in some cases. To work overtime. We have command staff that is working overtime to make sure we try to meet minimum standards for safety. And ISO. We all know that our insurance rating and all that depends on personnel with all factors. The reduction of personnel with volunteers. We know we've all struggled for years, ever since I've been here, maintaining the training and requirements and physicals for volunteers and staff. All those come into a factor, but number one factor is we have people leaving faster than we can hire them. We have 2 in training right now. We've lost 3 in the last 3 months, and we've been able to hire 2 to put them in training that would take what we offer them for pay. Those 2 take roughly 4 months to get them to a point where they can actually be on a truck with training. So it takes 4 months of training orientation, certifications. Then we have to make sure that they're familiar with the trucks, equipment, how we do it. Some are not even from Oconee. We have to do street school just to teach them where things are, which takes time. All of that being said, it is putting a strain on all staff, specifically during the summer and heat months right now. Structure fires need the same number of people if it's a paid department or volunteer department. We have to have people and that to make it safe. Unfortunately, firefighters die frequently in America still. We haven't changed that in America because we haven't changed all of our safety standards. And we haven't changed the people and the number of people we have on scene to make it safer. Sometimes it's the type A personalities we run into when we shouldn't. But we need, we need some help. And that is working on, those positions to get them. Some of the ways to do that. One of the ways we were hoping to do that was with the opening of the Bountyland Station gives us a more traditional place to put people, which to keep them. But in doing so, it allowed the engineer position to be in there, which is needed for that truck. So where we can actually give some type of vertical move instead of all being firefighters across our board. So it's easy for a firefighter from Oconee that we train. We spend the 4 months, and then even while they're here, they have to continue the training, the hundreds of hours of training that we give them a year. Then they can easily go somewhere else. And they go to somewhere else for a little more money, a few more counties, and they go for an easier work schedule. And not even work schedule, just the amount they have to do in a day. And so what we find is that our average firefighter, and we're talking the firefighter position only, is 16 months. And it's all our average longevity is. If you take 2 of those people, which are both part-timers, it's 11 months. So we've had them in training for 4 months. We've had to do orientation with them, and we're losing most of them in 11 months total, which is not good for economics because it costs us money to teach them because no longer are we hiring people that are trained. We are actually hiring people that are untrained, so the first thing we have to do is send them to the academy and unfortunately train them for somebody else for the long haul because we need to work on a longevity plan. What does that look like? I don't have all the answers. You know that it's been out there and there's 100 different opinions on all of that, but we have to look at something. One of the small things that we don't think about is as you're young, you really don't think about our benefits. And we have good benefits, and I won't ever complain about the benefits we have. But the young the kids that we're putting in danger and threatening their lives every day going into a structure fire, they don't think about that. So they don't look at that as a benefit. Unfortunately, their new money to them is money. They don't look at the package. And that's something we're trying to talk to them about, but they don't. One of the biggest things I always ask them is if you had military time, and if so, now's the time to buy your military retirement, because that's the cheapest for you to do it, because in the long run, that's the best economically for you and your family to do that, because they don't know all the packages. But something more than just what we're doing. Just here you come and you're a firefighter, and now you're a firefighter in our system for XYZ years because we don't have those stair steps. Like we do have a firefighter too, but we do need the specialist position, the engineer position, to allow there to be steps. So when they do get the training, they don't just step next door because they got the training and get a significant raise. Because they already have the training and they're doing the job for us. They're a firefighter, a fire specialist, and an engineer when they're alone at a fire station, just like the volunteers are. Many of them fit the same thing. They're doing all the jobs, not just the basic firefighter job in description and training. So, it's getting, when we can't continue, what does that look like with staffing? And that looks like a reduction in ISO, costing taxpayer money because of insurance when we lose that ISO that we've done a good job of doing. We try to maintain the training. We try to do as much as we can, but without staff, those numbers won't be there to do that. And so, that is a critical need as we move forward. So, the change in the budget, all that, the loss of the 3 captains, the 3 engineers, and the 3 firefighters. Without a raise, we're not going to fill the firefighter positions, but we would have people that were trained to fill those other positions that we would be able to actually give raises to. And then we could recruit some, because we had some of that to get the number of personnel in that. And when it all comes down to it is when somebody calls 911, they don't care if it's a volunteer. They don't care that it is a paid firefighter. They want someone to come to their disaster of the day. And sometimes it's worse than others because it's a disaster to them. And we respond no matter what it is, in the middle of the day, if it's to pick you up or if it is your house is on fire. The staff is helping out with the volunteers. And it's a system that both of us have to work together to do. But right now, we don't have the staff, and our staffing inability is affecting the support we're even giving our volunteers and the staff at our volunteer stations, which is hurting also, which, our chiefs would say the longevity is one of the problems in the fact that we put a person there just about the time they get trained on their equipment, they're gone. So, and then, one of the other things that, just as we're looking at things coming up and things looking in the future is the discussion on capital. In 2018, we worked on a 20-year capital replacement plan for all of our engines and all of our apparatus and rescue trucks and fire trucks and pickup trucks and everything that we have, which is a lot. In 2020, we changed that from a 20-year to a 25-year. So we basically said, hey, we're going to keep everything for 5 years as a reserve to help us not have to have 2 brand new trucks. And we've not bought some fire trucks. We haven't bought some for the cities. We haven't bought some for departments, and we've gone to reserves that are older. 2022, we changed that to a 25-year replacement plan. And then that, with the supply and demand that we're having right now, which is 2 years to 24 months to 36 months to get a fire truck, we're almost looking at a 30-year replacement plan on our apparatus now. And then with this year's change, we need to look at that again. Unfortunately, we have 1.3 this year that was expected to be replaced, and then in the next 3 years, we have 5.5 in just tankers. Unfortunately, we bought all of them 20 years ago. We bought all of them together. And so they're all at the same time, all 11 of them coming together at the same time. And those are big ticket items that we're looking at. Our fire trucks, we buy a very economical fire truck. It used to be $350,000 with new equipment. $550,000 is what we're looking at in 3 years increase that we've actually to now in just 3 years of the market. And it has just skyrocketed on us, which doesn't even come close to our projections for our replacement plan. And that's why we're looking at it again, going, what do we need? This year, we cut our costs by going to mini pumpers for those departments that have a full engine and they have a second engine sitting in their station. For ISO purposes or whatever that may be, we bought a smaller truck, which is a mini pumper to reduce that cost. And we were able to within budget because it went up so much from the year before. We weren't able to actually buy two of the full pumpers. All of that is increasing the cost in the budget for emergency services. That stuff we don't control. I can't control the market, and to be honest with you, I don't know how they're getting that much, but they are. Every manufacturer is given us, hey, where do you expect us to be? Where is this going to be? And we're seeing that our numbers, which we used to say 1.2, we could do our replacement plan a year. That's what it takes to keep our replacement plan on a 25-year replacement plan. Well, that's not true anymore because of a 40% increase in 3 years on apparatus. And we were pretty much on our scale that goes out for years, we were doing a 10% increase. So all that, looking at the process is cost. And that cost and everything, not just inflation. Inflation may be lot less than that, but that's not what the trucks are, we're having to pay for those trucks. So, with that said, just any questions or comments?
Questions?
So, retention's a problem. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I spoke with Ms. Brock, and I think last number she said was about, what did you say, Ms. Brock, 60% per year for firefighter 1 and 2 turnover? And obviously,
Our largest department turnover.
and obviously Paige part of that, and Ms. Brock, and I'm sure you're involved with it, is working on a plan. You can look at too, part of it's the 40-hour week, guys, you know, 'cause people don't want to be a firefighter and ride around in a pickup truck and test equipment. And the new, like you said, the new fire station, and when we get that brought online and hired, that'll give some opportunity. You talk about the safety of it and people, you know, going code, going on fire, a lot of that's experience. I've had a little bit of firefighter training in industrial setting, and fires are science. And the more guys see it, the more they realize what's about to happen, and maybe it's not safe to go in, and that's where, if we can, and we talked with the sheriff about this, if we can work on getting the pay up to where not only you can keep people, but if you lose a guy with 4 or 5 years experience, and change the structure too, to where you can hire based on experience and bring people in. And then obviously still bring in new guys and train them up, so there's people to bring them under the wing. I got notes here, what you've said. The fire equipment, it's not under the capital vehicle
It's
replacement
not,
fund. Is it funded through designated millage?
it is not. We do have designated 2.9 mils for rural fire service. 60,000 goes to the 17 individual fire districts, 30,000 to the rescue squads, and 15,000 to hazmat. And some equipment for the individual districts comes out of that funding. This year, in the proposed budget, we included funding for downlink to be part of that allocation. Millage can be added to that 2.9 mil to cover capital, or you can create a different designated millage account for that.
Maybe something we wanna do, so it's set aside and it's there, and
I believe you and I discussed that. I
Yeah.
can't remember, I don't have my
I'm
budget.
sure we
next
have.
week.
That was one of the discussions that was, if it's a millage, if it does grow as the cost grows for these items, hopefully it would coincide. You don't always know that that's gonna be, but something, getting further behind, we didn't expect to go, we used to get trucks in 9 months. That was the average that we could order a truck, and in the almost same fiscal year, we could actually get it. They're projecting, some of the dealers are already gone to 36 months on a truck. So that's also pushing our timeline out further. You know, we skipped a year on some funds. We had to move up and then fund the air packs, when we got the air pack grant. So that is off the table except for the lease purchase part, which is $290,000 a year, of that capital. Which is a significant reduction of the $1 million grant that we got from AFG Assistance to Firefighter. Really helped us out, but the rest of it wasn't funded, so that also set us back that year in the funding. It sets us back in what we actually have available for the replacement of the rest of the apparatus, that we have.
I imagine it's a perfect storm. You know, when the COVID money first came out, it was very restrictive. It seems like it's opened up a lot more now. So all the money, everybody's buying equipment, then you had a backlog of, loss of manufacturing time, so it's a perfect storm, just to skyrocket costs.
And a lot of the delays is actually the manufacturer not able to get the chassis, so they can, instead of doing 100, they can only do 50, whatever they actually get. And then that is actually, today, if they give us a price today, there's a caveat on the end of it, depending on the cost of the chassis, when it actually becomes available, the cost of the fire truck changes.
As far as pay, I think Ms. Brock has a good plan going forward. I don't think it's the final step, but I think it's a good first step. And then as we get ready for an amendment and to set the millage in September, maybe we can think about if we think it's best just to designate millage for equipment replacement.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
I have a couple of questions. There's a couple of different elements here. You got firefighters and then you got equipment. And Matt's pretty well addressed the equipment. What would you say the main reason these guys are leaving? If you take the salary element out of it, what are they telling you?
They want to be in a traditional firehouse. Much like our 40, it's hard to keep our 40 hours because they're in somebody else's house. They're visiting every day. It's not theirs. They don't have a tendency to take as much responsibility for that. And it's not about doing the actual job of emergency services and helping the public. They love that. A long-term one of our firefighters, specifically talked to him when he went to leave, and his word was, I want the traditional firehouse. I want the camaraderie of the traditional. We've done a few things. Our guys aren't alone anymore. They used to be one man in a truck. Even the ones that go to the stations are not individually anymore. We're trying to pair them up. One, for safety. Two, they all said, at least I have somebody with me, especially when you're talking a firefighter that has come out of school, has come through 4 months of school, he has 2 months of orientation with another person, and then finds himself driving to even a cardiac arrest, and he's the first person walking in the door to somebody's emergency, and he may never have walked into that door himself. A traditional fire department, when most of us grew up, we started as what we call a back seat. That's the third man on a fire engine. I had an officer in the front seat who controlled the scene, was in charge of that scene, usually a senior person of that, and I had an engineer driving the fire truck. And so I had 3 people to bounce what I'm doing off of. If I didn't know how to do something, there were 2 other people to say, hey, here's how you do it. And there's strength in numbers. We all know the threats. And some of them say they don't feel comfortable going into people's homes at 2 in the morning, not knowing, especially the places we have to go at 2 in the morning, alone. And so by putting them together, I'm not gonna say it's reduced, but we don't see the complaints of I'm out here alone. I'm out there, and I feel for the volunteers that they respond alone too. You know, I've encouraged them, if you don't feel comfortable, it is okay to wait for someone else to come. If you're not safe, the number one is we all must go home, and every one of my staff knows that I say that. Family, we're all going to go home to them. It's not worth. We didn't create the incident. We're here to solve it, not make it worse. So if you're not safe, and we're not safe, we need to make sure we deal with that.
Are other counties and cities having basically the same problem?
Yes, sir. Over 500 openings for firefighters in the state right now. Unfortunately, a lot of the special tax district in our competing areas do 2 to 3 raises a year, and they just do small steps because they can. They can, you know, it's just one body going here. Okay, our competitor went up 1,000. We're going to go up 1,000 so we don't lose anybody. And unfortunately, we can't respond that way. It's not good to just chase money, but that's what they are doing to combat all the changes in the service.
I'm assuming where I'm going with this is, have you, being the director, did any benchmarking with like Greenville, Anderson, Pickens, or even lower part of the state to get together and see what the real problems are?
People don't want to do public service anymore.
I understand that. And the whole dynamics of employment has changed. We discussed that before we ever went into the meeting.
So unfortunately for us, Greenville will tell firefighters, go to Oconee. They have openings. They're going to train you. They're going to train you well because we have a great trainer in our training program. And but when you get a little bit of training, come back to us, because a lot of them don't hire untrained people. They only train. They steal from everybody else.
Have y'all discussed a service level agreement between departments?
So not between departments. We have at the state level talking about how can we do that, like the sheriff's office and all the sheriffs does, so that you pay for anyone stealing back and forth. The difference is a lot of departments don't pay for it. And so we're competing with a department that doesn't pay for training anyways. And so there's some of that, but nowhere close to an agreement. It's been discussion at the state level to try to figure out how do we keep it from going from one to the next. But unfortunately, we lose to the hospital system, the private sector too, because they pay so much better on the private sector, like most places do. So we lose medical people to ambulance services they may choose they want to get into a new profession, or they, choose to want to work part-time for us and go make more money per hour for their family, or be home.
In that traditional role, I mean, I have firefighters in my family outside this county, and they run cabinet businesses and different things because the schedule allows them to do that. And the 40 hours a week, you ask somebody to work for, honestly, pennies in a schedule that, precludes them from doing anything outside of it, really.
Doesn't allow their second job. And we're not against moving the 40 hours to work out to where we could add a truck and be 24 hours a day. That to try to recruit more people in that setting. I mean, we actually did that. We moved 3 of the positions to be 24 because 3 of our staff wanted to leave, and they would stay for a 24 position. And we actually moved 3 positions to 24 because we were going to lose them either way. And it allowed us to actually maintain a truck in Corinth Shiloh as we to actually be able to backfill those trucks enough. We have people off on vacation, all those. A truck still has to be staffed, and so it helped us with that. And we've been pretty successful in keeping most of the 24s. It's been the 40s. We're not, we do presently have 2 that want to be 40 due to family life and childcare issues. But yes, I mean, those are options that we've looked at. Our problem is, we don't have places to sleep them. When you do 24, that requires our fire stations, the volunteer stations have for years built their station as a volunteer station, which that's exactly what they are. And we have a tendency, if we put staff in a volunteer station, it hurts the volunteers. And so that requires infrastructure. Infrastructure requires another station, a station at 183 and Country Junction Road to support that region, or, not in a firehouse, because if we put them there, people go, oh, well, they're there, and they stop coming because they don't feel used. In that big, some of the rift that we have with some of the departments, because some of the people think that, well, we're here, we're not needed anymore, and that's not the truth. We need everybody responding as much as possible. But putting them each individually in a firehouse isn't, in a volunteer house isn't a good option. It's been proven so far to actually reduce the volunteerism, not make it better.
Have you had any crucial conversations with some of these competing departments?
I have, and I know most of their chiefs, and I've talked to them, and they're in the same boat where they're trying to fill their slots for public safety, and they agree that the city of Greenville steals from them is what happens. I mean, they steal from us, the city of Greenville steals from them because their starting pay is around 56 when you actually get trained, and you don't stay there long because they have a step and scale type program. You actually have to get certain things done, but it's not just be for the year, but it's easy for people to, within a year you get this, within a year you get this, because you can get the classes. And so they're making so much more. So much like happens to us, the next step, they go further because they get the training.
And when you work 24 hours, that doubles the distance you're willing to drive to
Sir.
work.
We've actually looked at a schedule of 48 96s. There's a very big study out there nationally. I would say in my career, I would never want to work 48, but they say they love it because they come in 5 days a week, and you start taking people from 2 hours to 3 hours away that are willing to drive for that schedule. Boiling Springs loves that schedule. I talked to their chief just recently, and it was about recruitment. My issue is we are a department, a very busy department, and I can't guarantee I'm going to get you sleep. And when you have 2 trucks in one house, you can say, here's your primary truck, and this one's going to sleep. And if it didn't get sleep, one truck is out of service for a while. We don't have an option to pull people out of service because they were in a structure fire last night. And we are on almost every structure fire to make sure that we have enough people there for safety, ISO numbers and all that, for that. So we're busy, and not just busy with just medical, with everything, search and rescues. So
It's different county versus municipal. It's a whole different beast. As far as like staffing and the territory that you're going to have to cover.
they have a small territory, We have a large territory. A lot of our staff like that. It's that it's different. It's not just the same call, the same place over and over, but at the same time, it's a house. Seneca example, they have many firefighters there, the camaraderie, they're joking around. It's a brother sisterhood of your shift, and then it becomes a competition between shift to shift. And you have that draw. Everyone wants to be a part of something. And for us, it may be one other person because we're not even together in one place sleeping. We're all over the county. And which is what we have to be. I'm not saying we need to be in one place by any means. We need to be all over the county for the citizens. But the citizens deserve a response. And with the lack in some areas of trained volunteers or available volunteers, their availability has dropped. Which in some cases, we have great volunteers, but their job may have changed. They may be working a night shift now. They may have moved on and they have kids and they're going to travel ball. And all those factors are limiting the number of people that are showing up on scene, which again puts more strain on the system in general, if it be fire, rescue, EMS. Reason why EMS is asking because the number of calls are going up.
Have we explored recruiting out of state?
So nationally, we send out all those. We do send our flyer. I mean, we do Facebook like all those, but we do send our flyer to different organizations, the International Association of Fire Chiefs. We send our information of hiring out. What I will say is, unfortunately, even if we're comparing, if you're going to move, I'm not coming to South Carolina at all because in general, South Carolina's firefighter pay is a lot lower than anywhere else. And it's South Carolina's pay in general. We know that it's a lower pay scale area. And so I can go right now to Asheville as a paramedic and make $95,000 starting walking in the door because of their competition and their system is how it's done. It's a hard system and they're running them to death and they're leaving just like us because people don't want to work that hard, even for that amount of money. So it's not just like regionally upstate. It is nationally, there's a fire shortage. New York City filled half of the positions that they wanted to this year, roughly, with their recruit school. And Charlotte said they were way short this year when they were trying to hire firefighters. All those organizations steal people from different places, then steal it from us, then as it all moves, unfortunately. It's not just money, it is the problem of emergency services also, is that it is not the field that, everyone wants. It's not great for families. You're not home every third night. And so it's a unique set of people that want to do it.
Other questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving on, we got Sheriff Mike Crenshaw for a law enforcement update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. My situation with law enforcement is a little bit different. I feel pretty good about recruiting. We can recruit, but I am concerned, and I have concerns about the future as far as retention goes when it comes to sheriff's office and deputies that work for me. We've lost, we'll back up. The state did their staffing study this past year and started state salaries, state highway patrol starting out at $55,000 a year. If you've got some experience, you're going to be on up 57, 58, with possibly even a hiring bonus on top of that for some folks. So we, like others, Highway Patrol is starting a class in September. Between 30 and 40 new troopers, and every one of them is certified police officers from South Carolina. There's nobody uncertified in that class. I potentially may have two, but we don't know for sure yet. Over the last year, I've lost 3 to the Highway Patrol. Lost 1 to Greenville County Sheriff's Office, 1 to Anderson County Sheriff's Office. But like I say, from a recruiting standpoint, I've got 6 that's at the Criminal Justice Academy today. That's going through various levels of certification. I've got 3 more deputies that have been hired that are waiting to go to the police academy. I've got 3 additional deputies or potential deputies that's going through the hiring process, 2 deputies and 1 school resource officer. So, once we get to that point, you know, three that's got to come on board. I've still got 3 to fill. I've had 1 termination, I've had 1 retirement, and then there'll be 1 position that you'll be considering tonight with us taking on the Walhalla Middle School SRO officer that we will need to hire. In our detention center, currently we have 5 openings, you know, so that's not huge. But my concern again is with retention. We've had some of our fairly newer 2, 3, 4-year folks to leave. So I've got a sergeant's position that's open now that I'm gonna have to wait until I get some experience before I don't have anybody that's qualified to move into that position. So I've got some lieutenants that's having to fill in. But they're interviewing, you know, still. So I think we're gonna be able to fill. I'm hopeful that we're gonna be able to fill the 3 open positions that I'll have, the 5 open positions in detention. Dispatch, update on it. I've got 2 full-time positions and 1 part-time position open. But again, I've got applicants going through the process of that. So I think we'll have those positions filled and we should be full in our 911 center over the next few weeks. But my concern is, you know, these young deputies, is from a retention standpoint. So again, I'm gonna ask you to consider as you look at the budget, as you look at potentially putting money back in the budget with some amendments, closing that gap between 40,000 starting pay and 55,000 starting pay with Highway Patrol. And, you know, not saying that we need to get to 55, but we need to close that gap somehow, some way to help us with retaining those folks that we currently have. If we do go forward with the staffing study this year, then obviously we can address whatever else needs to be addressed next year. But, you know, I've put together a proposal or a thought, an idea. I know we've shared it with Mr. Durham. 700,000 plus fringe, I think, off the top of my head. That would get us to about 47.5 starting. And so, again, just asked you to consider that. That's kind of overall where we're at on hiring. Like I say, we can recruit. Talked about out of state. You know, we've got some folks, we've done some recruiting videos. We advertise. We've got folks that's come to us from out of state because they saw our video, they heard about us. So our culture, you know, I'm pleased with where we're at and where we can recruit from and get folks in the door. But I don't want it to get to the point where we're struggling to really retain folks going down the road. You know, Highway Patrol, I've had that conversation last week with the director of Department of Public Safety. And I said, you know, Director, I have a practice where I only hire 1 a year from the city police departments in my county. Maybe y'all need to consider enacting something like that on the state level. But I don't know. I don't know if it will go anywhere or not, but certainly I hope they consider that. You know, the issue for my folks making 40 going to 55, they don't have to move. Patrol no longer makes you move unless, as long as you're within 45 minutes of Greenville County, Spartanburg County, whatever you're assigned, and Anderson County. So anybody in Oconee could probably work Anderson or Greenville. I don't know if you can be in Spartanburg in 45 minutes from Oconee. But they don't have to move, so they can stay here. And that's kind of where we're going, you know, and yeah, you know, I've thought about this. I've looked ahead. Well, the Highway Patrol's going to get full, and then they'll quit hiring. And it should decline some. You know, we should see some numbers go down. But you know, I want quality folks. I want to provide quality law enforcement services to our citizens. And the way that I'm able to do that is with veteran deputies. You know, that deputy, once he gets a couple of years under his belt, I don't want him to lose him to a $55,000 job. I want him to stay here so that we can continue, because he's getting good after a couple of years. You know, and if I'm a citizen and that deputy comes out and he just got out of the academy, you know, I'm gonna wonder, is he gonna make mistakes for me on my case? Because he may, and we've had that happen. We just have to own it and correct it and do the best we can and train and keep training them and keep moving forward. And we try to review things, we try to catch things like that. You know, not to have a supervisor review these younger officers, but that's kind of overall. Vehicle prices, Director talked about. Fire truck prices, vehicle prices are going up. And I know we're in the capital plan, but we're seeing some drastic increases in police vehicle pricing. The position you're going to consider tonight, thank goodness we was able to find a vehicle on federal surplus for $20,000. It's an Explorer that normally would run you 40 plus, you know, so. But those opportunities are few and far between when we find those, but we're constantly looking for any way that we can save a dollar and save money. And finally, I'll share with you and I know y'all looking at this, but as you look at some amendments on the budget, you know, if there's any questions on the line item increases that we've asked for, certainly be glad to provide any documentation or data that you need. A couple of contract issues that we've got in the jail that I guess that's our biggest concerning need right now, making sure we meet those contracts. But that's a quick update for us, Mr. Chairman, unless you've got any questions.
I don't think I've got any questions. Good update.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next bullet. Discussion regarding construction alternate tipping area for passenger vehicles at Seneca Landfill.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about this here. There we go. First, we'll start off just to let you know, give you a little bit of background information on the landfill here. For the last 6 years, we have continually seen increases. Even before we had the tornado and the pandemic, we are already seeing the previous 10 years, we averaged only about 18,000 tons a year at the landfill. And then starting around fiscal year 17, 18, started climbing 20 to 22,000 tons. And then 18, 19, it climbed up to 26,000. The tornado, as you're well aware, it brought in a great number of tons. But even the pandemic, people couldn't go to work at a time. They came to the landfill to clean out their whatever they had. We saw a major increase during those months that nobody was working or they were at home. They were bringing material in. But over the time, our customer total transactions coming through the landfill has increased significantly, almost by 20% in the last 6 years. Our tonnage has increased by 85%, so much so that we had to get a tonnage increase through DHEC, which required 2 years worth of tonnage being over our limit. We were at 37,000 and 615 tons. Now we're up to 87,615 tons is what we can bring in a year. As you can see there, our total numbers, brush tonnage wise, we are anywhere from 9,000 to 5,000 tons. Fiscal year 21, we were down a good bit due to just we had some issues. People didn't have as much brush coming in from the standpoint of the tornado the year before. A lot of it came in, a lot of it went to the other site. And we were just had a down year that year. But then as far as C&D recycled, we've had a lot of increase. We started in fiscal year 18 recycling concrete, asphalt, and soil. We've had tremendous amount of projects going on in Oconee County and in Pickens County. A lot of that material comes from right around the area over near Hartwell Village, the pier, all those cleaning out or building new facilities. We get a lot of material from that area. Large commercial customers bring in 70 to 80% of all of our tonnage. Our top 5 customers bring in roughly 33% of all of our waste coming into the landfill, Republic Services being our number one customer. So what we're pretty much here, this is our area that we're actually dumping in right now. If you look up here, the red, the contour line there, we're actually over. This is what we call phase one of a seven phase expansion that we had several years ago. This phase here in the red, we've already overfilled in that area for phase one. We're not overfilled from the long-term standpoint, but just phase one. We only have roughly about a little over a year's worth of life left in this area. The green is what we've still got to fill. As you can tell, in the mid area right here, we have about 20 to 30 foot of fill that we can put in place right in this here. But this whole area here, we have less than 5 feet of fill material that we can put in, and this area here is 5 to 10 here in this area. Going forward, giving you an idea, this is our phase one. We've got roughly 1.2 years. This was actually taken back in May, so we've already used up a portion of this space. So our new tipping area, we're actually dumping down in this area, and our wall is still up in this area here where most of the residents dump off of, and then we're having the large haulers, they're coming in, and we started having them dump here. We got above the area, our contour lines, we had to move it on down, and now we're dumping into that large valley area in between the two areas of the landfill. We were thinking about moving our tipping wall all the way down here to the top of this area, but as we started looking at our numbers and our long-term plan, we've only got less than a year, roughly. If we move down here, that's not really going to benefit us much at all. So phase two is over in this area. This is at the corner of Strawberry Farm Road and Wells Highway. As you notice, our phase two, we're going to have roughly 3.3 years in this area. And then as we go forth, we're going to phase three continues down along Strawberry Farm Road. It has another 3.6 years roughly. Phase four continues on down and spreads out a little while. You got another roughly a little over 3 years until we roll into phase 5 and 6. These brings in roughly 7 years total getting to phase 6, and it's still just continuing the same progression. As you move forward, then our phase 7, it actually moves into the area where we're actually got our current scale house and our mulching area in this location. And that's got roughly 5 years of life, and then plus this little area. And then it moves into the final cover area, which is roughly 22 years, which covers, and you just start working your way up as you build our little mountain down there. To give you a better idea of what it looks like, this is actually right here is where we're at now on phase 1. By phase 20, when we fully phase the final cover phase, going to here to there, is roughly 200 and some odd feet of fill. If you've been down Wells Highway coming from the Seneca High School, you notice the water tower down. That water tower's top elevation is 1,100 feet. We're going to be at 1,000 and roughly 50. You'll be able to look straight across at the water tower 50 years from now. So that's roughly where we're progressing. We're moving up. In Oconee County, we've always had a hole, back up, dump. We can push it out just a little ways. Now we're building and mounting and stepping up. You're having to work on top of garbage. That is not a stable environment. It's not like building a road where you're putting in a bed, foundation, and bringing up with rock, and you're stable. You have areas out here we're actually building. We're the first landfill in the state to go on top of old landfill space. This whole area out there, the 55 acres, is old MSW household trash land. When we proposed it to DHEC nearly 8 years ago now, we had to do a lot of research. It took us 5.5 years to get it permitted. When we got it permitted, we were the first in the state to do this. Now, 4 other landfills have followed suit because you're just conserving a lot of space that you were once just had to leave vacant. So our plan is to move back into that area, across. It's gonna take us a while. We're gonna have to build a road. We're gonna have to put in a wall. And we'll be able to probably stay in one area, hopefully for about 10 to 12 years. That's our plan. And not have to push as far as we're pushing now. And as you've noticed here, when we first started phase one and moved in, they had originally planned this out that we were gonna be at like 25,000 tons. We were gonna have like 125 years of space. And then lo and behold, we went from 25 to roughly 48,000 tons in just a few years' time. Now we're just calculating off of 55,000 tons. That gives you roughly 45 to 48,000 tons of garbage, plus all your borrow soil that you have to cover. We have to cover monthly. Our tipping area, we have to cover with 6 inches of soil every 30 days. So we've roughly got now roughly about 48 years of life left, 47, 48 years of life, depending on our tonnage and where we're going. So there's been some questions. We've had customers come up. This is our wall. This whole area here is we allow our small haulers, when I say small, residents with small trailers, some commercial loads with small trailers, as long as they're nothing big. Just a reason we've had so much increase in traffic from little small businesses to bringing in little dump trailers, and then residents coming in all kinds of vehicles. We only allow them here just for a safety factor. Large trucks would come up, they would drop their roll-off containers, slam into the wall. We've had them knock blocks completely out, blocks that were tied into the system. They would knock them, cause the wall to crack or fall, and we just don't want people, residents around that area. It's just too, other landfills have even had roll-off trucks flip over because the load shifts, and that has happened at the landfill before, but that was years ago when we had a whole lot less volume, a lot less customers coming in. Going to the next, this was last Thursday. This was at about 11 o'clock. If you can see the picture here, you got 1, 2, there's a truck in behind here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Across there were 3 waiting to dump. This was just small. During that same time frame, there was 3 large trucks down dumping, and with 3 waiting. And this was a constant. We were averaging around 300 cars a day or vehicles a day coming into the landfill. Prior to fiscal year 19, we were averaging about 85 tons a day. One person could be on a loader and could manage that with no issue at all. Last week, there were days we were hitting 900 tons a day on 3 days. We had a lot of asphalt coming in, a lot of concrete coming in. We had brush, we had a lot of fill dirt. We had, you name it, it was coming in wide open. The week before, the July the 4th week, we were only open 5 days of the 6 that we're normally open. And we averaged nearly 3,000 tons that week. An average month is 4,500 tons. So there are some weeks we're overwhelmed. Going further, you can see this is where you came and see the wall from where we're actually loading here. We have actually a lot of the asphalt that was brought in. We built a road. There was a question, why don't you build a road every time you move? It took us 3,500 tons of ground up asphalt, rock, and dirt to build a road to get it down in here. And that's just to get it to the point where we're actually dumping at now. We were dumping up next to the hill and pushing it nearly 300 feet down the hill. That's just a lot of wear and tear on material on the equipment. We actually have the compactor running pretty much 8 hours a day down in this area. And our dozer, which is up at the top here coming down the hill, he pushes everything down. He gets down, he pushes up the bigger stuff that the trucks push. And once they spread it out with the dozer, they walk it back and forth in with the compactor. You can see this is from just today. The large truck comes in, he backs down, he dumps, and then after he gets through dumping, the the dozer is actually on its way down. He's gonna spread it out, and then the compactor sits there and just compacts as much as possible. When this machine's down, we lose space. And I'll give you for instance. Last year's, or the year before last numbers, we averaged roughly 1,200 pounds of garbage per cubic yard compaction rate. 1,500 is roughly the best you can do with the best equipment. Everything's perfect, brand new, good cleats on the wheels. We were averaging around 1,200. The compactor went down for several months this past year from due to different mechanical failures, parts, problems getting shipped to us. We will drop down to 600 pounds per cubic yard. If you do the math on that, based off of 46,000 tons a year at a rate of $35 a ton, we lost $800,000 worth of space just for that piece of machinery being down that long. So moving on here, this shows you the road that they back up. It's coming in, it's pretty much gravel. When it does get wet, it is kind of, it can get a little muddy just because they back into it and they track mud back out. Our loaders get up there, they try to spread it, push it, compact it in as best as possible, but they do have to back in, and this is what's typically done at most landfills around the state. It's just another picture of them coming up out. This is actually coming from the asphalt onto the gravel that we have out there, just our regular gravel that we get from the quarry, and the truck's pulling onto there. So give you an update, like our equipment. Our equipment's old, and just going through there. Our Bomag compactor is 7 years old, it's got 10,500 hours now. You say, well, that may not be a lot versus landfill equipment. Our previous landfill compactor was 16 years old when we got between 13 and 16 years old when we got through, and it had less than 10,000 hours on it and pushed half the trash of what this compactor's already compacted in the last 7 years. The wheels are near the end of its life. They are supposed to last 10,000 hours. They're barely past that. To replace those wheels is $150,000 to replace them with new wheels. It was sized for 150 to 200 tons a day max. Average working 95 to 150 was a good number. We're now seeing our average on 3 to 4 days a week, we're over 250 easy. Our John Deere dozer, that's the last piece of equipment we as far as pushing on with. It's now 5 years old. It's got 3,600 hours, and they're recommending replacing the undercarriage. Our 973 track loader is 16 years old. It's had significant downtime the last 2.5 years. We've replaced 4 final drives. The hydraulic system has been continually having issues. It blew out the housing and the pump. They replaced that all with certified parts. We started again last week. We ran 3 days and it blew out again. They believe it's a pressure problem that CATS has to fix with their laptop coming. They're coming hopefully sometime by the end of this week. Our grinder, I know we've got that on the list here. It's 15 years old. It's processed over 100,000 tons of debris from the landfill to helping the Clemson University out. We ground, when they moved to the Westminster Fire Station, we ground the 11 acres of property there, and where the new detention center is, we ground all the materials that came out of that area. So we're currently down. We got an email on Monday saying that everything was going to be due here by Wednesday. By Monday afternoon, we got another email stating now the parts won't be here till after August 1st. Now, this has been 8 weeks, I believe, we've been waiting on this part. And it's just hard to get parts now for the grinder. Our Komatsu wheel loader that we used to push the brushwood is now 17 years old, and our mowing tractor is 22 years old, and it now has a blown motor. We ran some numbers the other day. It gives you the age of the equipment, our purchase cost, when we actually started using it at solid waste. Some was new. We've had a couple pieces of used equipment and rental equipment that we purchased. Our New Holland tractor we purchased from the state surplus several years ago. We paid $6,000. We put $46,000 into it, just from issues that have arisen over time. And that gives you how much we've actually put in. If you've noticed, our wood grinder, we purchased for $450. We've already put $337,000 in it over its life. And we've got some others similar, and these are purchase price. Some of the issues with the same thing as fire, we used to you could call up some of these manufacturers, you could have them within 3 to 6 months. Now some of these are 6 months to 2 years, depending on the equipment, from the date of purchase. And so there are some issues there that we may need to very much so look into. Last of all, our staff update. Like I said, prior to 5 years ago, we could run with we had 2 operators. They split the 60-hour work week up. We have a crew leader, an operator. We added 3 inmates. They don't really care working there. We have 1 guy who's working now. We had 2 that quit this year. They wanted to go to other departments. I think 1 was actually getting out, or supposed to be getting out sometime this year, and another decided he no longer wanted to work down there. It's extremely difficult. When you're in a compactor, you're going over uneven ground, you're beating it, it'll beat you to death. I mean, literally, in first gear. If you get past first gear, it's hard to operate. Give you an idea, we've had, for the solid waste, we had 4 equipment operator positions open over the course of the past year. We filled 3 of those. We had less than 50 applicants in a year. Not including recycle center clerks, we're down 4 now, which is 20% of our staff. When I first came to Oconee County, it was easy to get anyone. I mean, I could put it out for 5 days. I'd get 120 applicants easy. Go through, pick somebody, get good staff who's willing to work, who's able to cover it. Same thing with equipment operators. Now, out of the 50 applicants, we called 25 of them weren't even qualified. They just put their name on the application, and that's pretty much what you got, was their name and an email address. There was no work history, no nothing. You call them, they may or may not answer the phone. Of the other 25, half showed up for the interview, and some of those, after they got there and realized that the pay was not what was on the actual Indeed application, they walked out of the interview. So right now, we're currently pulling 1 driver off of hauling garbage every day to put into the compactor, and the entire state inmate, he runs our dozer for the most part, and our crew leader is actually running the other 5 or 6 pieces of equipment, whatever he is having to do for that day. And in some days when we're having to cover the landfill, we pull two drivers. In past, when Kyle had more staff, he would even send people over to help do the covering as well. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Where are you getting the dirt?
Dirt? All right, so I don't have it on this map. Most of our dirt has came in from projects throughout Oconee County that people have wanted to get rid of the soil stockpile. Plus, we have an area that we still have from when we first excavated in 2006, the last expansion before our current one. We still have a little bit of soil left there. And then across Crooks Road, back between Crooks Road and Strawberry Farm Recycle Center, we actually permitted 11 acres of area that we can do bar soil. We have enough soil out there to last probably about 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then we also have plans, we've got an area that we actually own one of the houses on. If need be, there's 20 acres in there that we potentially can actually permit later down the road to get bar soil from there as well.
I got a question. How much are we taking in from surrounding counties?
Surrounding counties? Okay, so if they come from a surrounding county, from the landfill, as we asked them to tell us, we can pretty much see if they're coming in from a business. But anywhere, all businesses pay anyway. If residents come in and we question them, we tell them up front that, hey, if you're coming out of county, we charge. So it's about 3,000 to 4,000 ton total. And a lot of it's just from Clemson University, but they pay for everything they bring in. They bring us a lot of fill dirt as well, and we take that at no charge.
So if you've got individuals coming in from the surrounding counties, are we checking their ID or taking their word?
We pretty much take the word for the most part, just due to where we're located now with our current skill house. If you sit there and check IDs, they got to get out of the car, walk around the car to get it up to the window. If you do that, you'll have people backed out into the road, if we're checking this like small houses and things. We are looking at it. I actually talked to Ms. Brock back in the spring, when there was some discussion about the quarry. Our system does allow a scanner that we could require all residents to put their information in, and it would generate off of a license. So we are looking into that. It's about a $25,000 to $10,000 addition, because you have to put the readers in. The other issue right now is how far away can we put it? Because a lot of the loads come in, they got brush hanging over, and they come in, I mean, our building's got dents in it on the side, and we've had a window knocked out from brush coming in. So if you put the scanner over on the side, how often is it going to have to be replaced? So that's one of the issues we have discussed with the company that runs our software. Do they have anything that they could, that's like tree-proof, that when it hits it, it won't just disintegrate it?
And that's where I was going with that. Same issue with the quarry, you know. If you're out of state, out of county, you ought to have to pay some premium. Because that space over there in the landfill, basically for the citizens of Oconee County.
Yes, sir.
And we get took advantage of.
Yes, sir.
So we need to look at.
Because we're a lot closer than any of the surrounding counties' landfills. Pickens County is on the other side of between Liberty and Pickens. From Clemson side, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to get there. Anderson County landfill is all the way down Highway 81 going into Star. So for residents around Townville, it takes them 30 minutes to get to that landfill. So we are definitely closer than any of the others.
But we need to take a serious look at that, both for the landfill and the quarry. To help with some of the expense anyway.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
So when I looked at that picture you had, all the passenger vehicles, this passenger vehicle with no dump trailers, just backed out there. I mean, we can provide a tremendous service to our residents by providing brown good containers at the convenience center and limit the amount of people coming into the landfill. And I know we've talked about it. Have we ever ran any cost numbers on what it would cost?
We actually provided that in our annual update. We're still working on those.
Yes. One of our issues is space. We're running out of compactor space. We're running out of container space. With the amount of garbage that we're taking in at some of our busier centers, and busier centers is where we probably get more of our brown goods from, just because you got more people there. We've looked at if you run just an open top container, you're looking at probably making anywhere from 6 to 10 additional pulls per center per week, maybe even more on the weekends, depending on people getting out and cleaning up. If you were to put a compactor unit in, you can get by probably 2 pulls a week at some of those sites. But the biggest issue is most of our sites have a 1/4 acre of space. And we've got 4 centers now. I think on some of the numbers we provided this week, we're taking anywhere from, if you do run the numbers on cars, Ebenezer Community, some of our people here use that center. They're averaging 1,600 to 1,800 cars a week. And on the weekends, not a week, I mean a day. Some of them are surpassing 2,400 cars a day on the weekends. Adding additional traffic to those centers. Mr. Crine can attest, he uses Ebenezer. There's many times they're backed out in the road waiting to get in just for a regular household garbage. So some space is a big issue that we have right now. I mean, most of our centers are 20 to 25 years old, built when we had 50,000 people here. Now we're at 80,000 plus people who come in on the weekend. So we're still looking at those things, definitely. And we've got one that we're planning to put at Five Forks. We're trying to get the concrete poured. We had some issues. We put it out for bid, and the bid came back way over budget, and it's had some other issues in there. So we're hoping to re-look at that sometime this fall.
I do have one other question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned you had 3 inmates working.
Yes, sir.
You said one of them decided he didn't want to do it.
Yes, sir. They have that choice.
Okay. That's, I'll hold my comment.
Yes, sir. They have the choice. If they come in the middle of the day and they want to go back, we have to take them back. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move right along here and discuss this commercial junkyard ordinance that's been proposed by the planning commission. I'll lead us off here. I've read through what's been presented. I'm assuming this is the latest. Is that correct, Mr. Root?
It is, Mr. Chairman, and we're looking at the one, well, it's not on board, but it has the red blocks, text blocks in it. So those are the most recent additions from the planning commission when y'all sent it back to them. So Mr. Haney and Mr. Britt would have an opportunity to speak on it. So they did have that meeting. They added what's called out in the red text blocks. There was one other thing I noticed on the meeting, under the definition of fence, so that's in section 32-573. Fence shall mean a substantial continuous barrier constructed, and they added and maintained. That wasn't in the red call out, but everything else was in there. There were additions that they're suggesting that you made. We've got the planning commission chairman and planning director here who could probably speak better than I could on these changes, but I think the biggest issue, I'm pretty sure the biggest issue that they want input from this committee and ultimately from council on is the grandfathering issue. You know, what businesses are gonna be grandfathered, if any, and if they're not gonna be, or if they're gonna be grandfathered to a certain extent, what's gonna trigger them coming out of this permitted nonconformity into compliance with the ordinance, and is there gonna be degrees of compliance because it's an existing junkyard? So those were the issues. Mr. Pearson, Mr. Cooley, if y'all have anything that I'm missing, please feel free to jump in.
I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, that's why I called you.
We worked a lot on this. This is not something that has just been 2 or 3 months in the works. We worked on this thing, not just this commission, even, it was worked on even before with other commissions. Some of us feel that grandfathering these existing ones into it is not, we shouldn't do it all at one time. They should have a certain length of time to comply with the entire ordinance. And we have, not necessarily junkyard, but we have recycling, and this ordinance would cover those. They're out almost in the highway now. And there's no rules against that other than the highway department. We have busted our butt to get this as fair as we could possibly get it without saying, you're gonna do this else. You know, we've worked with everybody, we've done our best. I did the grandfathering part, we left that up to y'all, but a lot of us feel that they shouldn't just be saying, oh, well, you're already here, you do what you want to. No, you still should have a length of time, at least in my feelings, where your grandfathering is over, you have to comply with the ordinance. And you give you so long to comply with it, because we do have a lot that are not complying with anything at this point.
And that's the largest problem I have with this. My thoughts are that all commercial junkyards should be included, no grandfather. And the reason I say that, it takes the teeth out of it when you grandfather certain ones, and folks don't come to Oconee County to open junkyards. So I think I'm not in favor of a grandfather whatsoever. I think, because I looked at page 4 of 5 here under section 32-755, and it lists all these things that would define a non-conforming commercial junkyard. And I would say, how are we gonna know if one of these items, 1 through 5, are not being met. I don't know what kind of process we have to know these things. So if you ain't got a process to define them, then you're not gonna know. And I'm in favor of I'm in favor of not grandfathering any of commercial junkyards. That they all have to conform, but we give them an adequate time period to conform.
That was my thoughts as well.
Do we know how many commercial junkyards we have?
5 and 7.
I was thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 that I know of.
And how many of those could meet, how many of those can meet the standards of the ordinance now?
Without any work?
0.
There wouldn't be any that would just automatically be appropriate, that would meet all the standards that are in there.
But they're all would have to do some work to be in compliance with this. It's not, I don't think it's a burden on a lot of them to comply with it, but there's a couple that it's gonna cost them to get in compliance with the ordinance. But, they should have, in my opinion, they should have thought about that before they opened the junkyard. They should, I mean, everybody else has rules. And we've let recycling businesses and all just do as they please. And it's really causing problems in certain areas. So, I mean, I think we should give them a time limit. And even if they need more, they can come to before us or go maybe Board of Zoning Appeals, I'm not sure how it would work, but, and ask, hey, we need another 6 months or whatever, and we could grant that. But we need to set an initial time limit, so you've got this much time to get to meet the ordinance. And then, once that time is up, if they need extra time, we can allow them depending on what it is they need to come up with.
I'd be in agreement with that, and, we could give them, say, a year, You don't have to squeeze them much.
I was thinking a year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to make sure our record's clear. And I think Mr. Pearson was clear on stating when he was kind of speaking for himself and when he was speaking for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is, their report is just on the document. So I'm not trying to cut out anything Frankie's saying, just want to make sure that part's clear. I know, my recollection, Cherokee County, and there's a couple others that didn't allow for like a typical grandfathering where you have operations that are ongoing. Going to allow those to continue unless there's some change, and then you're going to have to come up to some standards. Cherokee County, I know we're going to implement this on everybody. The fencing requirements, they gave 2 years to. I'm not saying that that's the reasonable standard. That one just pops out into my mind.
And I'd be open
going
to
down that road. If you'd like me to, I can draft that kind of, I guess it's modified, not really grandfathering, but an opportunity to come up to the current standard for the non-conforming.
I'd like you to do that, if you could.
I'd like to comment. I'm afraid I'm gonna disagree with y'all on the grandfather. That's like changing you've got the baseball game going up and you say, oh no, you get 4 strikes instead of 3. If you think, what is the price of a chain link fence that's 6 feet tall? Somewhere like $10 a foot. And you've got, let's say, just a minimum acre. That's 800 and something, that's 8,000 skinneroos there to fence in an acre. Now, let's say you got a 5-acre junkyard. What kind of money you gonna give somebody a year to do this? I say you're gonna have to give them 3 years to do it. Because you got that kind of money for that chain link fence. They don't just come out here and run out and stick it in the ground for you.
Well, that's why I said we could give them an initial year, and then what they can get done within that year, and then they can come back and say, hey, we need to finish this, and we can extend that, as long as it's a legitimate request. Because I've been in Oconee County for several years. People will take advantage of any small little loophole that we leave in this ordinance. we say, oh, we're only gonna give them 3 years, they'll wait till a year, or wait till 2.5 years before they start anything, and then they'll come 6 months later and go, hey, I didn't quite get finished, can I get another 6 months or another? So, we need to set time limits now and let them work toward that. And if they don't, we can give them a little more time, but we need to set some kind of standards, because people will take advantage of anything they can get a hold of. And we just need to.
I got another question. You're gonna have I reckon where you start putting junk cars, you're gonna have to have 125 feet from the road right away?
Well, you won't jump right on the side of the road like we have in certain areas?
Well, I don't wanna give up 125 feet of my property because of,
You gotta have somewhere to park,
well, that's true too, but
and that's not.
I
much
should have
more
brought a
than park.
chain in here with me so you can see what 125 feet looks like.
Oh, I know, none of those numbers are written in stone. Y'all can change them, we can change them, whatever is decided, but there needs to be a parking spot to get off of the road. Because
Unless you're driving a Mack truck, I think 125 feet you'll find a place to park.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, that's a really good point, and that's where we start to get into a concern about regulatory takings type issues. So what I could draft along those lines is to have the setbacks modified for these, because I think the primary thing is the attractive nuisance issues, having it fenced in, having it safe, having it, from sight. But I don't know that the setbacks, saying, hey, you gotta move your operation 250 feet back, we're gonna get sued on that. So I could have something that works with existing setbacks. I'll just have to come up with some language on that. I mean, that's a concern I share about, from a different perspective, but about liability.
Okay.
Takings on that.
I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to bring that back to law enforcement, or draft it, send it straight to council?
Go ahead and draft it. Send it to the planning commission
Okay.
and let them preview it, and then it'll come back to us. And if you'd like to, Mr. Rucci, go ahead and discuss his EV battery disposal.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, did research from the last, Planning Commission brought it up too, certainly an issue with the ignitability, combustibility of electric vehicle batteries. The real focus, while I was kind of bemoaning that the regulatory framework has been lagging on this, I think the big focus has been, one, we haven't had a lot of these cars or vehicles reach their end of life, and two, the big regulatory focus has been on, and grant focus, et cetera, has been on getting all these charging stations up. So I think that's why the EPA and DHEC are lagging behind. What they've done, the EPA suggested and DHEC confirmed, at least their attorneys confirmed to me, is to treat it as a universal waste. It's almost a catch-all category, but it's a hazardous waste. So electric vehicle batteries would come into that. They have different categories within the DHEC regulations for small universal waste handlers, and then large ones based on 5,000 kilograms, which I think is about 5 tons, somewhere thereabouts. I'm not sure about the metric system. They tried to teach us, but we wouldn't do it. Didn't hold. So my notion is, and this is something I sent to you all by email, was to capture that recommendation to use the universal waste regulations and incorporate them into the junkyard regulations. And I think a blurb along the lines, I don't want to put it, to state, there we go, that electric vehicle batteries shall not be stored or handled in a commercial junkyard unless done so in strict compliance with applicable hazardous waste regulations promulgated by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control or a successor agency, and they may be splitting up, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Electric vehicle batteries are generally considered universal waste by the EPA and DHEC due to, among other factors, characteristics of ignitability, reactivity, and consequently must be carefully managed. And then I give the cite to the current DHEC regulations. I think that's, from what I've seen, is about as good as we can do right now. EPA is putting out, seeking all all the information they can on best practices, and I think they're gonna drop those down, and then the states will follow suit. Maybe different states responding differently to that, but I think we're not far away from getting specific handling for EVs. At this point, I think this is a good, I don't wanna say stopgap, but it takes, into account how to handle those batteries for the time.
I think what you've got, and I read through it, needs to be adopted into.
Added into the jump.
Yes.
Everybody
Make a
good?
motion, we adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.